Welcome back to Football Daily for today's top 10, where we're taking a look at some youngsters simply rotting away on the bench right now. Let's get into it. 10. Amad Diallo. We start in the Premier League with Manchester United's Amad Diallo. The winger came from almost nowhere in October 2020 when Atalanta agreed a deal to sell him to the Premier League side for an initial €25 million, with the potential for it to rise to over €40 million. When this was confirmed, the Ivorian had only played 46 minutes of competitive football across 4 appearances in all competitions. Now, a year on from him moving to North West England, the 19-year-old has just 9 more games to his name, the majority of those as a substitute. In fact, this campaign, after a fairly serious injury, Diallo has appeared in a matchday squad just 3 times, with his sole appearance coming in the meaningless Champions League game at home against Young Boys in December. Handed the number 16 shirt ahead of this season, previously worn by both Roy Keane and Michael Carrick, many expected the teenager to have a larger role, but the signings of Cristiano Ronaldo and Jadon Sancho, as well as the recent emergence of Anthony Elanga, have seen his game time plummet. Diallo's loan move to Feyenoord in the summer collapsed on the final day because of that injury, but he's going to have to move away this month for some much needed game time. 9. Dejan Kulusevski. When Juventus spent €35 million to sign Dejan Kulusevski from Atalanta in January 2020, it was yet another example of the Bianconeri hoovering up Italy's best young talent. The rangy forward was midway through a stellar loan spell with Parma, contributing 18 goals for I Crociati, and was expected to establish himself as a useful player in Turin pretty quickly. And he did just that, making 19 starts, appearing in all but 3 Serie A matches, with 4 goals and 3 assists despite competition from the likes of Ronaldo, Chiesa, Morata and Dybala in the positions he would usually occupy. This campaign, though, with Max Allegri in charge, has been far less successful for the Swedish international. 21 years old, Kulusevski has made just 6 starts in all competitions, with 5 goal involvements to his name, and whilst he appears in most games as a sub, rarely gets more than 20 minutes of action. Perhaps Juventus was a step too far too soon, and maybe a stint away from the Allianz Stadium is best for Kulusevski before he begins to stagnate too much. 8. Xavi Simons. There might be a chance that former Barcelona youngster Xavi Simons casts his eye back towards Spain, sees the success of Pedri, Gavi and Nico Gonzalez and thinks, that could have been me. Having joined La Masia as a 7-year-old in 2010, Xavi quickly became one of the club's most highly rated youth players, with Chelsea and Real Madrid reportedly trying to poach him from the Catalan Giants. In 2019, as a 16-year-old, the Dutch youth international chose to leave Barca, signing a 3-year deal with PSG. But now, with just 6 months remaining on that deal, the midfielder is yet to make an impression at the Parc des Princes. He featured for 13 minutes last season, whilst his only 2 starts with the first team came in the Coupe de France against 4th and 5th tier opposition. In a side so dominant, it's slightly surprising that Xavi has been named on the bench just 16 times. Seeing him miss out on valuable minutes he almost certainly would have got if he'd have remained at the Camp Nou. If he doesn't get enough game time on the pitch in 2022, it wouldn't be a surprise to anyone to see Xavi move on yet again. 7. Bryan Gil. Everything was set up for Bryan Gil to have a good 21-22 campaign with Sevilla after impressing on loan with Eibar last season with 8 goal contributions despite their relegation. But Tottenham came calling in the summer, eventually acquiring the 20-year-old for a fee of £22 million plus Eric Lamela heading in the opposite direction. But halfway through this campaign, and Gil, who can play anywhere behind the striker, is still yet to see his name in the starting lineup of a Premier League game, featuring for just 85 minutes across 8 substitute appearances. Even when he has started matches, the Spaniard, who has 4 caps for La Roja, has failed to impress under both Nuno and Antonio Conte. His only assist came in the Europa Conference League qualifiers, and with Spurs now out of that competition, his opportunity for minutes has quickly dried up. There's already a chance that Gil could well become yet another expensive player not getting enough minutes in North London, although a congested domestic fixture list could also see him get some regular game time over the next few months under Antonio Conte. But with Sevilla in a title race back at home, maybe he's ruining his decision. 6. Rayan Cherki. To Ligue 1, where Lyon continue to produce great French talent, and next in the line that includes the likes of Benzema, Fekir and Lacazette is teenager Rayan Cherki. Just 18 years old, the attacking midfielder has already made over half a century of appearances for his hometown club, having made his debut in October 2019, just 2 months after he turned 16. But 2 years on, and Cherki has only just passed 1,000 Ligue 1 minutes, having made just 8 starts compared to 38 substitute appearances. He's only completed completed 90 minutes once and has just one league goal to his name. Hardly surprising, as he averages less than 15 minutes of game time when he does get on. Impressing in the Europa League with 2 goals and 3 assists in 4 games, it's hard to understand why Cherki hasn't been given more of a chance in the league, especially with Lyon languishing in mid-table at the halfway point. Cherki, who also has 4 goals in 3 games for the French under-21s, is starting to grow frustrated at his lack of game time. What harm could it do to play him a bit more? 5. Eduardo Camavinga. This one may be very harsh, but after his €30 million switch from Rennes to Real Madrid, Eduardo Camavinga probably anticipated a little bit more game time. After all, Luka Modric is the oldest player in Carlo Ancelotti's squad at 36. Toni Kroos is an elder statesman in the dressing room, while Isco has barely had a look in since 2019 and will leave at the end of the campaign. But as we enter the second half of the season, Camavinga has made just 8 starts in all competitions for Los Blancos, with Ancelotti instead relying on the tried and trusted trio of Modric, Kroos and Casemiro. To date, the 19-year-old has only had 511 minutes of action. That's the 17th most in the squad, and the least of anyone to have featured in at least 10 La Liga fixtures. Both Man United and PSG were also said to be interested in the French international, and looking at each of their squads, it's not hard to imagine that Camavinga would have been a more regular starter at one of those clubs. However, he remains the future in the midfield at the Bernabeu. If he remains patient, it's pretty likely he'll end up holding down the position at Real Madrid for the next decade. 4. Tanguy Nianzou. In early 2020, Tanguy Nianzou burst onto the scene at PSG, stepping up during an injury crisis at centre-back as a 17-year-old. In doing so, he attracted interest from across Europe, and with his contract with Le Parisien up at the end of the campaign, ultimately moved on a free to Bayern Munich. But it hasn't gone to plan for the teenager since then. Still only 19, a succession of injuries that ruled him out for the majority of his debut campaign in Bavaria has stunted his development. That also cost him a place in the France youth setup, not featuring since his last under-18 game in 2019, despite over 40 appearances at various levels before that. Nianzou is featuring more this campaign, but was hooked at half-time in his sole Bundesliga start and has less than 500 minutes to his name across all competitions. However, with Hernandez, Pavard, Sula and Upamecano all ahead of him in the depth chart, chances will continue to be limited for the youngster until the end of the season, when the likes of Sula leave on a free contract. 3. Ilaix Moriba. One of the more surprising departures from Barcelona last summer was Ilaix Moriba. He only made his debut in January last year, making 18 appearances across the second half of the campaign. Come the summer though, and in some part thanks to the club's poor finances and horrendous wage structure, an 18-year-old Moriba would reportedly demand a new deal worth €100,000 a week, as he expected to become a regular squad member. Obviously Barcelona were not going to be able to afford it, and the Guinean was shipped off to RB Leipzig for a cut price €16 million. Some saw this as the perfect move for the teenager, with the Bundesliga side having a track record of developing young talent. But 6 months down the line, and the now 19-year-old has just 100 minutes of action in 6 appearances for his new side. In fact, Moriba has had more game time with Guinea at AFCON in the past fortnight than his first half a year in Germany. Despite Leipzig's poor form, it doesn't look like the teenager is going to be getting a solid run of games anytime soon. Fortunately though, he's joining Valencia on loan for the rest of the campaign. Maybe now he'll get a decent amount of first team minutes. 2. Yusuf Demir. Here's one that we actually have a bit of hope for this campaign. Yusuf Demir established himself as one of Europe's brightest talents last season, contributing 9 goals as a 17-year-old for Rapid Vienna, as they'd finished second to RB Salzburg in the Austrian Bundesliga. That earned him a loan move to Barcelona, who had an obligation to buy him for €10 million once he'd made 10 appearances for the club. The Austrian, who already has 4 caps for his national team, was somewhat of a regular under Ronald Koeman, making 2 starts and 6 appearances from the bench before the end of October. When Xavi came in though, his game time immediately dropped, with his last appearance for Barcelona coming in the Champions League on December 8th. That put him on 9 games, and with Xavi reluctant to pay the €10 million, his loan was terminated, sending the teenager back to Vienna. Whilst Rapid remain keen on cashing in on their prospect, there's no doubting that 6 months at the heart of a Europa League side would likely have proved more beneficial to Demir than the alternative, and hopefully the club see sense and keep hold of him until the summer at least. 1. Reinier. Real Madrid have made a bit of a habit of buying promising Brazilians, signing Vinicius Jr. in 2018 and Rodrigo in 2019, but their January 2020 acquisition of Reinier for €30 million hasn't lived up to expectation, and it's not entirely their fault. After 6 months of acclimatising to Europe, the former Flamengo youngster moved to Borussia Dortmund on a 2-year loan deal. What was seen as a win-win at the time is probably now looked back on with regret by both sides, as the 20-year-old has made just 3 starts in all competitions in the 18 months he spent at the Westfalenstadion. With no significant injuries to mention, Reinier only has 1 goal and 1 assist in 614 minutes of action since the start of the 2020-2021 campaign, making 30 appearances in total. Unsurprisingly, Dortmund aren't keen on keeping the youngster around beyond the end of his loan this summer, whilst Los Blancos are weighing out the possibility of cutting their losses on him already, despite being contracted to the club until 2026. Unless something changes drastically, Reinier is set to be one of football's biggest busts in recent years. So that was our list of 10 wonder kids that are currently rotting on the bench. Let us know if we missed anyone and what you thought of the list in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye!